Chapter 11, Handsome and Talented. Sha Zimo was stunned. She was still in the kitchen, struggling to slice a potato, when Su Heng, with just a few words, convinced her dad to head to Shanghai. Even her mom decided to tag along. Before long, Joya had packed her bags, and the couple was ready to leave in a hurry. Zimo, go to your grandmother's house for now, Joya said, worried about leaving her precious daughter home alone. She then turned to Su Heng and added, Su Heng, don't forget to take those 2 bottles of wine with you. Auntie, my parents specifically told me not to bring anything back. If I do, my dad will definitely scold me, Su Heng replied, looking a bit awkward. Sha Mingyu stopped his wife from pressing further and said generously, let's not make things difficult for the boy. Zimo, go to my study and bring a box of Longjing tea for Su Heng. All right. Sha Zimo quickly returned with a gift box. One look at the packaging, and it was clear it was high-end and expensive. Su Heng didn't stand on ceremony. He accepted the tea and said his goodbyes. As he strolled toward the school gate, Sha Zimo caught up with him. Did your parents leave? She asked. Yeah, Su Heng nodded. A slight blush crept onto Sha Zimo's pretty face. I didn't even finish my tea at your place. Why don't you come back for a bit longer? Su Heng, grinning shamelessly, replied, sure, I could help you with some math problems if you need it. Sha Zimo's heart raced, but she tried to appear calm, thinking she had come up with a good excuse. Okay, I do have a few math problems I can't figure out. Alright, I'll tutor you, Su Heng said with a smile. If Joya knew that her daughter had invited Su Heng back the moment they left, she would probably be furious. Sha Zimo took out some papers and asked Su Heng to explain a few problems. Truthfully, she had already solved those problems herself. Su Heng quickly went over the explanations. Not bad, Sha. If you keep this up, you can easily get into a top university, he complimented her. Sha Zimo was delighted to hear that but pouted a little, acting coy. But I'm not as good as you. You're always the top scorer. Su Heng replied casually, that's why you're still pretty amazing, always coming in second. Sha Zimo huffed, HMPH, I've been under you for 3 years. Under me for 3 years. How come I never noticed? Su Heng's thoughts took a sudden turn, and his mind went somewhere quite inappropriate. Hey, want to turn the tables and be on top for once? Su Heng asked with a sly grin. Without catching the innuendo, Sha Zimo rolled her eyes and shook her head. You're just a genius. No matter how hard others try, they can't surpass you. True, Su Heng said, not pretending to be modest. He then looked at her intently and said with a meaningful smile, but you still have a chance to be on top. It would be easy to create that chance, just become my girlfriend, he thought. You'd feel like you're in charge in no time. Rascal. Sha Zimo finally sensed something was off and changed the subject. Su Heng, my mom is usually very kind, but today she seemed a bit cold toward you. Did it bother you? Silly girl, your mom's just worried I might steal her precious daughter away. I wouldn't take it to heart, Su Heng replied with a carefree laugh. Joya was just being protective, so she deliberately acted cold. Besides, with his experience, Su Heng could tell Joya was a gentle woman, otherwise, she wouldn't have raised a daughter like Sha Zimo. Sha Mingyu also left a good impression, friendly in demeanor and decisive in action. In short, the Sha family wasn't like many other wealthy families who look down on others and act all superior. I won't be easily taken away, Sha. Zimo blushed and said softly. Oh, really? Want to bet I can steal you away in 3 months? Su Heng asked, using her words as a chance to express his interest. PFF'd, I don't believe you. Sha Zimo's heart beat faster, but she still put on a defiant front. Willing to try. Bring it on, she replied. They continued bantering, back and forth, neither willing to back down, yet their bond grew closer without them realizing it. Meanwhile, Sha Mingyu and Joya were already on a bus heading to the provincial capital. They had brought over 100,000 yuan in cash, planning to catch a flight to Shanghai from there. Mingyu, you're really trusting that kid after just a few words. Is it too late now to make money? Joya asked. She always supported her husband's decisions unconditionally. Although she wasn't a fan of Su Heng, when Sha Mingyu decided to go to Shanghai to buy subscription certificates, she didn't hesitate to follow. The chances of making money are quite high, but there's still some risk, Xia Mingyu admitted. Then the conversation shifted back to Su Heng. That kid is something else, smart, emotionally intelligent, indecisive. Zhou Ya said calmly, I'm not deliberately against him. I'm just worried that our Zemo, being so young, might end up at a disadvantage with him. Xia Mingyu nodded. That's true. With that kid's smarts, if he ever sold our daughter, she'd probably help him count the money. Su Heng and Xia Zemo spent most of the day together, and their feelings for each other grew significantly. With school starting the next day, Su Heng went home and brought up the idea of making spicy snacks to his parents. When he mentioned wanting to open a food factory, both Su Xin and Zhang Ping were taken aback. Opening a factory and hiring workers was a big endeavor, much larger than they'd ever considered. Xiao Heng, setting up a factory isn't a small thing. Besides the permits needed, there's also finding a location, buying machinery, hiring workers, and sourcing raw materials. It would cost a lot of money, Su Xin explained patiently after calming down. Dad, Mom, leave the money matters to me. Just follow my plan, Su Heng said, his tone calm but firm. But, Su Xin and Zhang Ping noticed that their son seemed different, more composed and confident than before. Dad, no more buts. Right now, if you're bold enough, you can make money. This is a golden opportunity. You and Mom aren't the type to be overly cautious, so why are you hesitating now? Su Heng used a bit of reverse psychology. Sure enough, the couple became interested, though they still worried about the finances. After half an hour, Su Heng finally convinced his parents. By the way, a food factory in the city just went bankrupt. I'll see if we can buy it at a low price, Su Xin suggested. Good. Don't haggle too much. If you can buy it, just buy it, Su Heng agreed, knowing that even buying a plot of land now, without doing anything, would result in significant appreciation later on. The three of them then enthusiastically discussed their ideas and plans for the food factory. Chapter 12. The academic ace heads to Shanghai. Back at school, staying in the classroom felt like torture for Su Heng. With no pressure to study further and his memory and intelligence significantly enhanced, he was confident he could easily achieve the top score in the province. But more importantly, there were golden opportunities waiting outside. If missed, they might never come again. He needed to plan ahead, position himself wisely, and strive for financial freedom as soon as possible. He dreamed of early retirement and a life of leisure. Mr. Shu, I'd like to take a leave of absence, Su Heng said after just one class. Why are you asking for leave again? Didn't you already settle things at home? Mr. Shu Jimin immediately refused and said earnestly, Su Heng, I know you have excellent grades, but precisely because of that, you can't let your guard down. Mr. Shu, don't worry about the college entrance exams. Don't make empty promises. Tomorrow is the second provincial mock exam. If you can get first place in the entire province, then you can take as much time off as you want, Mr. Shu said casually, setting a nearly impossible condition. Su Heng had long been the top student in his city, but throughout Jiangdong province there were many geniuses. His best performance had only ranked him in the top 50 in the province. For a top student like Su Heng, that was already close to the limit, improving further would be extremely challenging. Are you serious, Mr. Shu? Su Heng calmly countered. Of course. All right, then if I get first place, I can take a break from school whenever I want. With that, Su Heng happily returned to the classroom. This kid, could he really be that confident? Mr. Shu wondered, seeing Su Heng's confidence. He shook his head, still thinking the chances were slim. Back in class, Su Heng tapped into his memories from his previous life and reviewed the mock exam papers in detail. 2 days later, the mock exam was over. Su Heng, how did it go? Think you can get first place in the province? Mr. Shu asked with a half-joking tone. It felt pretty good. Whether I get first depends on how the others did, Su Heng replied calmly, and then, in front of the whole class, he confirmed once again, Mr. Shu, if I get first place in the province, I'm taking a long leave. All right, a teacher's word is a promise. Mr. Shu still didn't believe Su Heng could achieve first place. If he actually did, Mr. Shu would only be thrilled. After all, if a student could get first in the province, taking leave wouldn't matter, they'd definitely be recruited early by a top university. What? Su Heng made a bet with Mr. Shu to get first place in the province. When his classmates heard the news, they were stunned. Come on, getting first place in the province isn't that easy, some classmates muttered, thinking Su Heng was too bold. Still, they didn't say much more. After all, Su Heng was always first in the city, and even if he didn't get first in the province, it wouldn't be shameful. 3 days later, the results were announced. Jiangzhou No. 1 high school was in an uproar. Su Heng, second mock exam, total score, 738. This score set a new record for the province and even for the entire country. Out of 750 points, he lost only 12. An almost mythical score. Previously, Su Heng's highest score was 708. This time, he jumped up by 30 points. Sha Zimo, who had performed exceptionally well, scored 692, placing her second in the city. With this score, she had a chance of breaking into the top 100 in the province, an outstanding achievement. However, no one paid attention to her. The attention of the entire school, and even the whole city, was focused on Su Heng. A score of 738 was simply too astonishing. Su Heng hadn't expected to cause such a stir. Sigh, I really don't want to stay in school anymore. I just wanted to make sure I got first place, Su Heng thought. He felt like a celebrity. Being in the spotlight and treated like a genius made him uncomfortable. He was planning to head to Shanghai or Beijing. He needed to get away, if only to escape the attention. Brother Heng, I don't even dare to be seen with you now. The pressure is too much. How can you be this good? Wu Gang joked, laughing with their friends. He wasn't jealous at all, he only felt proud of his buddy. Sha Zimo felt much the same. She had been thrilled with her own exceptional performance, but now, sigh, the gap just kept getting wider. Classmates, you've got to learn to adapt. There will always be some people in this world that you can never catch up to, no matter how hard you try. To help ease your pressure, I've decided to leave for a while. Don't miss me too much. But I will miss you all, Su Heng said to the whole class with deep emotion before leaving. The classmates were momentarily stunned, then quickly realized what was happening. This guy is too much. So arrogant. Su Heng, you jerk. Don't come back once you're gone. Don't tell anyone you're our classmate when you're out there. They shouted playfully, but there was no malice. Instead, they felt that Su Heng's joking showed he wasn't arrogant and didn't put himself above others just because he excelled academically. As Su Heng walked out the door, he ran into Mr. Shu. Mr. Shu, I was just about to ask for leave, Su Heng said with a smile. Mr. Shu waved his hand, smiling and pretending to be impatient. Go on, go on. Knowing Su Heng's incredible score, he had already been excited for half a day in the office and had just calmed down. Having a student as extraordinary as Su Heng was a rare blessing in his teaching career and something to be immensely proud of. Su Heng left school and took a taxi straight to the train station. Over the past few days, he had carefully analyzed all kinds of information and selected 2 investment directions. One option was to head north to Beijing to buy a few courtyard houses in prime locations. Now was the perfect time to invest, especially in the golden spots within the second ring road. If missed, even having money in the future wouldn't guarantee a purchase. The other option was to head south to Shanghai. On March 15, Shanghai would auction 6 state-owned stores. This would be the first national auction of state-owned stores. All 6 stores were located on the bustling Nanjing Road, prime locations. Back then, these 6 stores were auctioned for a total of just 1.5 million yuan. In the future, any one of these stores would be worth over 1 billion yuan. I'll head to Shanghai first. Whether I invest in courtyard houses or bid on state-owned stores, I'll need to cash out some stock subscription certificates first. After a brief thought, Su Heng decided to head south. He first took a bus to the provincial capital, then caught a connecting flight. By evening, he had arrived in Shanghai. He randomly chose a hotel to rest and recharge. Early the next morning, he went out to gather information. First, he found the registration location for the auction and inquired about the necessary procedures. Since this was the first state-owned store auction in Shanghai, it was poorly organized. The organizers had never done anything like this before and weren't even sure how to proceed. Registration was simple: provide identification, just a resident ID card, and submit a deposit of 100,000 yuan. After a successful bid, another 300,000 yuan must be paid within 3 days, and the remaining amount must be settled within a month. To scrape together 100,000 yuan, I need to sell 2 sets of stock subscription certificates, Su Heng thought, feeling a bit of a pinch. But he knew he couldn't pass up this opportunity. Better find a trading point to check the current market prices, Su Heng thought as he returned to his hotel in Shanghai. The stock trading salon on the first floor was packed with people, buzzing with activity. 60,000%. No more, one loud voice rang out. Having understood the current market situation, Su Heng decided to sell 2 sets. Chapter 13. A single move stuns everyone. There were still 3 days left until the deadline for auction registration. Su Heng planned to sell his subscription certificates in a couple of days, as their value might still rise. On the morning of the 3rd day, Su Heng went to the People's Bank and took out 2 sets of subscription certificates from a rented safe deposit box. The private trading of subscription certificates was extremely popular, and hundreds of trading points had sprung up spontaneously. Complete sets of certificates were now extremely rare because they were gradually being acquired by big players. Su Heng knew that if he suddenly put 2 complete sets up for sale, it would cause quite a stir. Just like when he bought them, he went to various trading points, selling them off in batches. After selling both sets of subscription certificates, he made a total of 128,000 yuan in cash. With the cash in hand, he took a taxi to the auction registration point. "Young man, are you sure you're in the right place?" At the registration desk, Gao Wenjun, who was leisurely drinking tea and reading a newspaper, was stunned to see a young man, looking like a student, standing in front of him. "No mistake. I'm here to register," Su Heng replied calmly. "Register? Ha ha ha." Gao Wenjun burst into laughter, as if he'd just heard a great joke. A high school student coming to register for an auction. If that wasn't a joke, what was? Ignoring the reaction, Su Heng took off his backpack. "You do know the registration requires a 100,000 yuan deposit, right?" It was the last day for registration, and not many people were around. Gao Wenjun asked with a hint of amusement. "Of course, please count it," Su Heng said. With a zip, he opened his backpack, and 10 stacks of 100 yuan bills spilled out onto the table in front of Gao Wenjun. PFF'd. The tea that Gao Wenjun had just sipped sprayed out of his mouth. The sudden appearance of 100,000 yuan in cash was a shock to his system. The cashier, Lu Hong, a young woman, was also stunned, her eyes wide open. It took a full 3 seconds for both Gao Wenjun and Lu Hong to recover. Well, young man, you really can't judge a book by its cover." Gao Wenjun took a deep look at Su Heng. At that moment, countless thoughts raced through his mind. This young man must have an extraordinary background. How could he casually produce 100,000 yuan and remain so calm and composed? This kid must be from a wealthy family or representing some big shot who couldn't appear in person. Thinking this, he no longer dared to underestimate Su Heng. "Did you bring your ID?" Gao Wenjun asked politely, his tone completely different from earlier. "Yes, I did," Su Heng said, handing over his ID with both hands. "Just turned 18, from Jiangzhou City." After looking at the ID, Gao Wenjun thought that he must be a front for some powerful figure from a small place. "The ID is fine. Please fill out these forms." After checking the ID, Gao Wenjun handed Su Heng a stack of papers. The forms required quite a bit of information, and it took Su Heng a full hour to complete them. Then came the money counting. Finally, Gao Wenjun kindly explained the auction details to Su Heng. By the time all the formalities were done, it was already 3 in the afternoon. As Su Heng left the registration office, he vaguely overheard a conversation behind him. "Chief Gao, look at the types of people registering, either self-employed or nouveau riche, or even farmers. Today, a student showed up. Xiao Lu, do you really think the state-owned stores will end up in the hands of those nouveau riche?" Lu Hong shook her head. "You'll see at tomorrow's auction," Gao Wenjun continued, "the stores won't fall into the hands of those country bumpkins." Hearing this, Su Heng found it amusing. In his memory, if he hadn't intervened, these 6 stores would have been bought by a farmer from Jiangsu and Zhejiang. Now that he was here, he had to make sure Gao Wenjun's words came true. With Su Heng around, there was no way these stores would end up in someone else's hands. At exactly 9 o'clock the next morning, Su Heng arrived at the auction site on time. The venue was small, a conference room of a government department. Inside, about 17 or 18 people were seated, all wearing suits and ties, but their down-to-earth nature was hard to conceal. The shiny gold watches on their wrists and the black leather bags in their hands gave away their identities. The setting was quite formal, as it was organized by the government. It was the first time these people had attended such an event, so they all sat up straight, looking cautious, much like primary school students attending a class. Su Heng casually took a seat in the last row. At 9:30, the leadership took the stage. And no, there were no professional auctioneers. The auction was presided over by Zhao Ming, a leader of some bureau, who first gave a 10-minute opening speech. After a round of enthusiastic applause, the auction officially began. The 6 stores on Nanjing Road are being auctioned as a package. The starting price is 1 million yuan. Each bid increase must be no less than 10,000 yuan. The highest bid wins, Zhao Ming announced, then took a sip of tea and slapped the table with a loud bang. Start. Was it starting just like that? The crowd became a bit excited but hesitated to be the first to bid. They were afraid that their bid might not follow the rules and end up being laughed at by everyone. Hey, I'll bid 1.01 million. Finally, a man in a gray suit stood up to make the first bid. With someone breaking the ice, others quickly followed suit. I'll bid 1.02 million. 1.03 million. 1.16 million. A few minutes passed, and the price had only increased by about 100,000 yuan. Su Heng quietly watched at first but soon became impatient. Moreover, he noticed that the leaders on stage were showing satisfied smiles. They were worried about the auction failing because the starting price of 1 million was no small amount. Seeing the act of bidding, they collectively breathed a sigh of relief. When the bid reached 1.2 million, most bidders had given up, leaving only 3 still holding up their paddles. This price had either exceeded their expectations or their financial capabilities. 1.5 million. Su Heng felt it was time to raise his paddle. Instead of increasing the bid by just 10,000 yuan, he raised it by 300,000 yuan directly. The entire room fell silent. Moments later, there was an uproar as everyone turned to look at the person who made the bid. When they realized it was a young man who looked like a student, they were collectively stunned. Whose kid is this? Shouldn't he be in school instead of causing trouble here? Everyone's first thought was that a student bidding 1.5 million yuan was too absurd, too unbelievable. Zhao Ming was also a bit confused. He looked around as if asking what was going on. Others shook their heads. Zhao Ming checked the list of participants. Number 19, your name is Su Heng. Zhao Ming asked after finding the information. Yes. Is there a problem, sir? Su Heng calmly replied. Oh, no problem. Since he was on the list of auction participants, he must have passed the verification. There was no issue. Zhao Ming turned to the others. Does anyone want to bid higher? The last few bidders all shook their heads. 1.5 million yuan was an astronomical number for everyone present. More importantly, Su Heng's bid was just 2. Shocking. 1.5 million yuan was like a heavy blow that shattered their confidence. Chapter 14. This young man is not simple. Throughout the entire auction, Su Heng only raised his paddle once, but that single move was enough to outbid all the competitors. Successfully winning 6 state-owned shops left Su Heng feeling quite thrilled. To him, these 6 shops were like hens that laid golden eggs, with unimaginable potential for appreciation. Although he was now technically a millionaire, that wealth was only on paper, intangible and out of reach. The 6 shops, however, were real and tangible, located on the bustling Nanjing Road. Thinking back to his previous life, where he spent half of it struggling to pay off a mortgage, his current situation was dramatically different. Now, with just one decisive move, he owned 6 prime shops with full property rights in the heart of the metropolis. How could he not be excited? What followed were some tedious procedures, mostly involving signing various documents. After completing the formalities, Zhao Ming specifically reminded him, Mr. Su, please remember that you need to pay 300,000 yuan within 3 days, and the remaining 1.1 million must be settled within a month. Don't worry, Director Zhao, I will pay on time, Su Heng assured him. He had no intention of paying immediately and planned to delay it until the last possible day because his subscription certificates were constantly increasing in value. "Good, you're quite impressive, young man," Zhao Ming said. Having dealt with countless people, he found himself quite fond of this calm and composed young man. "Thank you for the compliment, Director Zhao," Su Heng replied humbly. Zhao Ming, becoming even more pleased with Su Heng, tore off a piece of paper, wrote down his contact information, and handed it to him. "I enjoy interacting with young people like you. Your minds are sharp. If you have time, why not have a chat with me? Whenever you call, I'll be there," Su Heng responded modestly, also feeling good about this middle-aged man who didn't put on any airs of authority. If possible, building a good relationship wouldn't be a bad idea. Seeing the increasingly appreciative look in Zhao Ming's eyes, he didn't say much more and led his team out of the venue. As soon as the officials left, the auction venue buzzed with excitement. The other participants quickly surrounded Su Heng, eager to know more about this young man. They had all noticed how friendly Zhao Ming was towards him, even going so far as to give him his contact information. They speculated that this young man was definitely not simple. "Congratulations, Mr. Su. Mr. Su, you're really young and accomplished. Mr. Su, you've left us old folks in awe. Mr. Su, would you do us the honor of having a meal and a chat?" Everyone instinctively felt that this young man had an extraordinary background, so they tried to curry favor while also trying to find out more about him. The 6 state-owned shops were a big piece of fat meat, and they were keen to know who exactly had beaten them. "Thank you all for your kindness. I'm really sorry, but I have other matters to attend to. Let's arrange another time," Su Heng said calmly, handling the chaotic voices with great composure. "Then could you leave us a contact number, Mr. Su?" "Sorry, I don't have a fixed contact number at the moment." "Mr. Su, could you jot down my number?" Many people eagerly handed Su Heng their contact information. He noticed that most of them had handheld phones, commonly known as Big Brother phones. These first-generation mobile phones, weighing about a kilogram, could make calls and even be used as bricks for self-defense. "I should get myself one of those Big Brother phones, otherwise, it's too inconvenient to stay in touch," Su Heng thought as he finally managed to extricate himself from the crowd. Back at the hotel, he felt somewhat bored. Without mobile phones or computers, and with so few entertainment options on the street, time passed slowly. Fighting alone is too tiring, he mused. He still wanted to go to the capital to buy a courtyard house, but he couldn't leave right away. Su Heng realized he needed to find a suitable assistant. Today is the Lantern Festival. Su Heng walked along the Huangpu River, illuminated by lanterns, and heard vendors shouting about selling rice dumplings. Only then did he suddenly remember that today was the Lantern Festival, a time for family reunions. He hurried to find a public phone and called his neighbor's house. This neighbor owned a small store and had a phone that nearby residents often used for making or receiving calls, though they charged for the service. "Sister Zhang, it's a call for Su Heng, from Shanghai," the neighbor called out. "Is it my little Heng?" Zhang Ping, worried about her son who hadn't come home for the holiday, hurried over to answer the phone. Su Xin also quickly followed. "Xiao Heng, why did you go to Shanghai again? Have you eaten? You must be careful out there." Zhang Ping had 1,000 things to say to her son. "Mom, I'm doing well here, so don't worry," Su Heng said. Not being one for sentimentality, he couldn't stand his mother's nagging, so he changed the subject. "By the way, Mom, how is the matter of Dad buying the food factory going?" "Come, tell him yourself," Zhang Ping said, handing the receiver to her husband. Su Xin spoke in a lowered voice, worried that neighbors might overhear and spread rumors since nothing was settled yet. "I inquired, and it's at least 200,000 yuan. 5,000 must be paid when the contract is signed, and the remaining 150,000 must be settled within a month. The price was too high, so I didn't pursue it further. Your mom and I discussed it and thought about setting up a small workshop at home first. We can make and sell our own products and still earn some money." Su Xin explained the situation and his thoughts. "Dad, you should take the money and secure it tomorrow." "As I said, don't worry about the money," Su Heng said firmly. Su Xin opened his mouth to protest, but all he could think about was the money. 200,000 yuan was an astronomical sum. In the entire Jiangzhou city, there were probably only a few people who could come up with 200,000 yuan at once. Little did he know that, in Su Heng's eyes, it was merely a small amount. Selling just 2 or 3 sets of his subscription certificates would cover it. To Su Heng, 200,000 was incredibly cheap. The food factory occupied 50 acres, and in the near future, it would be located in a prime area where every inch of land would be worth its weight in gold. Alright, I'll go secure it tomorrow. Out of trust in his son, Su Xin finally made up his mind. Go for it, Su Heng reiterated firmly. Okay. Su Xin had no more hesitation but then remembered something. By the way, son, Wu Gang stopped by our house yesterday. A classmate who borrowed money from you is looking for you. He left a phone number, write it down and give them a call. Alright, Su Heng said, jotting down the number, feeling puzzled. Was it Sha Zimo looking for him? Or her family? After finishing the call with his parents, Su Heng hesitated for a moment before picking up the receiver again. Chapter 15, A Brave Move. Su Heng, you're in Shanghai again. The voice on the other end was none other than Sha Zimo. She happened to be sitting right by the phone, and perhaps it was a woman's intuition, but she had a feeling Su Heng might call. Yes, do you need something? Su Heng asked. Not me, it's my dad who wants to speak to you. Feeling shy with her parents nearby, Sha Zimo softly reminded, take care of yourself out there, before calling her father to take over the call. Su Heng, it's your Uncle Sha, Sha Mingyu greeted warmly. Uncle Sha sounds quite cheerful. I take it you bought the subscription certificates? Su Heng asked with a smile. Indeed, it's unbelievable, Sha Mingyu exclaimed. In just 10 days, I've made 20,000 yuan, all thanks to your advice. I just gave a suggestion. It was your sharp judgment and quick action that made it happen, Uncle Sha, Su Heng replied, subtly offering a compliment. Haha, I like the way you talk, young man. So, Zimo said you're in Shanghai. Sha Mingyu's curiosity was piqued. Could this kid be back in Shanghai to buy more subscription certificates? He wondered. Yes, just out for a stroll, Su Heng said, deliberately keeping his purpose vague. Naturally, Sha Mingyu didn't believe that Su Heng was just out for a stroll. He was quite curious about what this clever young man was up to in Shanghai but felt it wasn't his place to pry. Su Heng, come over to my place when you're back in town. Sure, Uncle Sha. Oh, by the way, Su Heng, I'd like your opinion. When do you think is a good time to sell the subscription certificates? You must be joking, Uncle Sha. How could I know? Su Heng chuckled but still shared his advice. Personally, I think it's best to hold on to them until at least March 1st. March 1st was the lottery drawing date. By then, a set of subscription certificates could soar to 20 or 30,000 yuan. Even more, there would be good news around that time, likely driving the value even higher. That's still a while away. Alright, I trust your judgment, Sha Mingyu said, feeling more confident about holding on to his certificates. After hanging up, he turned to his wife with pride. You were worried about losing money before, but look, we've struck it rich. And according to Su Heng, there's even more to come. Joya had never imagined there could be such a fast way to make money. She worked at the Industry and Commerce Bureau, earning just over 200 yuan a month with all the allowances. Yet in just 10 days, they'd made nearly 10 years worth of her salary, unbelievable. Still, she felt uneasy. I just don't feel secure about it. Honest folks work hard all month for 100 or 2, but with these subscription certificates, it's like daylight robbery. It feels so unfair. This is exactly what the country means by letting some people get rich first. As the chief architect said, it doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice, it's a good cat. In other words, as long as it's legal and compliant, making money is a sign of success. Sha Mingyu saw the bigger picture. He realized that the so-called stock subscription certificates were part of a deliberate, wealth creation movement by those in power. Those who caught on could easily complete their initial capital accumulation. Dad, what's the current price for a set? Sha Zimo asked curiously. 70 to 80,000. Wow, then didn't Su Heng lose a lot of money? Sha Zimo blurted out. She knew Su Heng had sold his for 30,000 a set, which meant he'd missed out on tens of thousands more. Zimo, don't concern yourself with these things. Go back to your room and study, Joya said, wanting to keep her pure-hearted daughter away from the world of money. She sent her daughter back to her room. Feeling a bit disappointed, Sha Zimo reluctantly walked away. She wanted to hear more about Su Heng from her parents. Meanwhile, after the call, Su Heng continued strolling along the Huangpu River. Bang, bang, bang. Bright fireworks shot into the sky, creating dreamlike patterns. Fireworks are fleeting, but in that brief moment, they showcase their most beautiful selves. Amid the dazzling fireworks and quiet streets, Su Heng suddenly felt a wave of loneliness. Unbidden, thoughts of the lovely Sha Zimo surfaced in his mind, her graceful figure, flawless face, and sweet, warm voice. A gentle smile appeared on his lips as he thought of her. Just then, 3 people approached, 2 adults with a little girl walking between them. They hurried past him. Lost in thoughts of Sha Zimo, Su Heng didn't pay them much attention. However, as they passed, a sudden sense of unease crept over him. He turned his head to look and saw the little girl, squeezed between the 2 adults, turning back. Her dirty face was streaked with tears, and she was frantically blinking at him, her lips moving slightly. "Help me, uncle." Su Heng instantly read her lips. Damn, these 2 are human traffickers. Su Heng's hatred for human traffickers was deep. He wanted nothing more than to rush over and rescue the little girl immediately. But reason quickly cooled his anger. The man looked strong, and the woman was burly too. There was no telling if they were armed with knives or other weapons. He glanced around. No pedestrians, no patrolling police. "I'll save you," Su Heng mouthed to the girl, signaling her not to be afraid. Surprisingly, the little girl nodded, clearly understanding his silent words. What now? Calling the police would take too long. Shouting for help, too risky. No guarantee anyone would step in, and it could scare them off. I'll just follow them quietly for now. Su Heng's mind raced as he pretended to be nonchalant, slowly trailing behind them. He took in the adults' appearances. The man had a fierce look, and the woman's expression was no better. This only made him more certain they were up to no good. As he cautiously followed them to an intersection, he saw a beat-up van pull up in front of the burly man. Damn it! Su Heng's heart clenched. He knew full well that if they got the girl into that van, finding her again in a city as vast as Shanghai would be like searching for a needle in a haystack. No way, I have to take a risk. No matter what, I can't let them take the girl away. With only a few dozen feet between them, Su Heng summoned all his strength and dashed forward like the wind. Just as the woman opened the van door and the man was about to shove the little girl inside. Bastards! At the critical moment, Su Heng arrived, his fist already clenched, and he swung it with all his might at the man's head.